Welcome to Gather In, where you'll hear stories of conversion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you have an interesting story to tell, please go to our Instagram page or send us an email to gatherin@proton.me. Today's interview is with Sarah Alland, originally from Roy in Utah. Sarah's Instagram page, Let's Be Growing, is well worth looking at and following and liking and all that sort of thing. Sarah served in the Chile Conception South Mission and came home about a year ago. And we'll start off with talking with Sarah about her mission.
Sarah, so you would have gone on a mission pretty much right when you were 19, or were you a little bit older?
Yep, I graduated high school in 2020, and then I started home MPC December of 2020, and I turned 19 in September. So 2 months after I turned 19.
So was it almost like you couldn't wait to go on a mission?
Yeah. I had some pretty strong revelation the week before COVID hit. I'd gone to the temple 3 times, and I had just felt very strongly that I need to go on a mission as soon as possible. So I was ready to submit my papers as soon as I could.
Okay, so when you went on your mission, it was pretty much in the middle of COVID still? Were there still a lot of restrictions happening in Chile?
Oh, yes. Yes, so I actually was in the home MTC for my full 6 weeks. I never got to go to the Mexico MTC. They gave me a reassignment, but then the borders opened, and so they were like, just kidding, you're actually going to go straight to Chile. So I was really fortunate that I was sent directly to Chile, but we were in lockdown. First 10 days I couldn't even leave my apartment, and then after that we could leave for an hour, 2 hours a week with permission from the government. You had to submit forms, and then you could go to the grocery store once a week. That was about 6 months, the first 6 months of my mission.
Tell me, how did you cope with that? That would have been quite the ordeal, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. My first companion didn't speak any English, and we lived just the two of us. So it was pretty difficult at first, trying to figure out the new country, missionary work, the language, and then all of it all in quarantine. We lived 2 hours out of our area. My first area, I served in for 6 months, and I visited one time. But I know the people because we video called them. We did everything over Zoom. But it was pretty taxing mentally and spiritually, and definitely the hardest part of the mission was the very beginning.
Your first companion, were you with that first companion for the whole 6 months? No.
No, I had companions in that
And your first companion spoke no English at all. So was that young lady, that young sister missionary, was she a local? Was she from Chile?
Yeah, she was from northern Chile. So
that would have been.
She had been there before COVID because because she had to stay within the mission or within the country.
Okay. Were there times you were thinking, what am I doing here?
Definitely. It was kind of weird to be I was like, oh, I live in a foreign country. And they're like, oh, how is it? And I'm like, I don't know. I know the 4 walls of my apartment. I might as well have been living in Utah because I never left. So it was kind of strange to be like, oh, yeah, I'm in the country, but I'm not really getting to know the country.
Yeah, look, that's a pretty amazing challenge to go through, for the first part of your mission. And it was basically 1/3 of your mission. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So when the rules started to relax around COVID, did it sort of happen suddenly that you were suddenly allowed out all the time, or was it a gradual sort of release where you were given more time?
It was pretty gradual. Right at first, it was like, okay, you can go to church, but it's very limited numbers. Luckily, they let the missionaries go every week, but the members had to switch off. And so this would have been June of 2021. Yeah, was the first time we went in person including like the whole country. That was the first time they went in person. And that was the first time we had in-person district councils, in-person zone conferences, like it all. So that in that way, yes, everything all happened like that month. It was like, okay, we're doing everything in person. But then the like knocking doors, I wasn't able to do until my very final transfer in the mission.
Wow. Well, that's yeah, that's quite amazing. So a lot of missionaries through that time were being reassigned. I guess you were assigned to the Chile Conception mission after all the reassignments were happening. So there were people out in the mission field. COVID hit. People were being reassigned all over the place. I know currently we still have some missionaries here in our mission who started their mission in one mission, usually in mainland US, and they ended up, coming here. So we actually have quite a few missionaries who have been through that. So that wasn't the case with you. You went straight to your mission, served your whole mission there in your mission. You were just locked inside for a fair bit of it, and you had in those 6 months you had 4 companions. So spending all that time home alone with your companion, it would have been, I guess, sometimes a welcome relief just to have a change of companion and get to know someone new.
Yeah, definitely. And after a month, we moved and we ended up living with 2 other sisters. So that was a lot better too. That there were more social interaction with other people.
Okay, look, that's all quite amazing. I mean, I'm sure, as you get into studying psychology, you'll look back on your missionary time and think, wow, I did pretty well to get through all that. I've come through unscathed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Pretty amazing.
Sarah, let's just jump back a little bit. So you've grown up in a faithful LDS family, and you got to the age of 19 straight off on your mission. Tell me a little bit about life growing up in a faithful LDS family. I'm a convert. I didn't join the church till I was 24, so I know nothing. Just pretend I know nothing, and tell me what it was like as a kid growing up, going to church regularly, living in Utah, so you're surrounded in the Mormon culture. Sorry, I said the M word, the Latter-day Saint culture. Now, go back to your earliest memories for us.
Okay. I mean, I remember like in elementary, like all of my friends were members. Like it didn't even happen on purpose. There's just so many of us that you just naturally became friends. And then at home, for me, my biggest memory was definitely we went to church every Sunday and we had FHE, family home evening every Monday. And we were always just having gospel conversations. And that was just like part of how we lived. We always said prayer before we ate. We weren't a family that did scripture study every night, but we definitely would do it and talk about the scriptures. And I don't know, both of my parents have always been very active in their callings. And honestly, me and my siblings, like there's been weeks where like, oh, I don't want to go to church, but all of us have been very faithful and just wanted to go, and we didn't need our parents to get on us and force us to go, because we were just willing to participate and be there.
Yeah, okay. So, and the neighborhood you grew up in was largely LDS? So.
Yep. I knew more people who were members than weren't.
Was there a stage in your life where you started to realize that you lived in Utah and you were LDS, but not the whole world was?
I mean, I remember, small interactions with a neighbor who wasn't, because like my direct neighbors for some reason weren't members, whereas like most of my neighborhood was, but like my very next door, like 2 of my neighbors were not members. And so you'd see them smoking or whatever. And so in that way, I had like a friend in my neighborhood who also wasn't a member. And I think I just realized how blessed I was, honestly. Like I was just like, wow, like they're going through such hard things, that could be avoided if they just knew about the word wisdom, or if they just knew that God loved them. So I think for me, it was always just like eye-opening to how blessed I was to
Yeah,
have this
yeah.
knowledge.
But obviously, as you grew up, and your education, you went through school, you studied history, or geography, and you'd learn about other countries, and at some stage in your growing up years, I'd be interested to know how old you were when you sort of realised that, the church has been restored to the earth. I'm a member of the Lord's True Church, but I live in this place called Utah, which is uniquely LDS almost, but the rest of the world isn't. And did that play in your mind as far as going on a mission and wanting to go on a mission, as soon as you could?
Um, I I mean, I remember that I always wanted my friends to know about the gospel. And I remember like when I made my Instagram account, I was 12. Like I was very young. And I remember like I just wanted people to know about the gospel. I don't know if I like specifically was like, oh, people who aren't members. I don't remember. I just wanted to be able to share on there. I do know like the older I got, that the more like, yeah, I want to serve missions to help others. And I remember specifically, I hadn't even decided I was serving a mission yet. I was probably like 10 or 11. And at this point, I still was like, my brother can serve a mission. Like, that's super cool, but I don't need to. And I remember hearing the quote that missionaries leave their families for 2 years so that um, others can be with their families for eternity or something. I don't have the words exactly memorized. And I like remember writing that in the front of my scriptures that I'd been given as an 8-year-old. And I just always remember like, oh yeah, the missionaries are super cool. Like they're giving up this time because we want families to be forever. So I think for me it was like that idea was that families can be together forever. Because I remember going to a wedding once they weren't sealed in the temple, and I was like, but they're not going to be together when they die. And I was just, so for me, I think it was just that like eternal families that was so
Yeah,
important to me.
that's very influential. Now, your older brother served a mission in Finland, I understand. Oh, Norway,
In
sorry.
Norway.
Oh, that's my son-in-law who served in Finland. As I said, I
No
always get
worries.
those two countries mixed up. Let me ask, how much older is he than you, and how influential was him going on a mission on you, or were you already there virtually?
I think I had decided before he served. Definitely so he served 2017 to 2019. So he's 3 years older than me. Um, oh, it would have been about the same time because it was when I got my patriarchal blessing that I really decided, and I was about 15. And so he would have been about 18, about to prepare for his mission as well. So I guarantee that I just remember like being like, oh, this is so cool that he's serving the mission. And we'd become really good friends that last year. So it was actually like really hard to send him because before that we just kind of fought as siblings do. But then we'd become really good friends. And so then I was like, oh, like, but it's so cool that he's getting to go. My uncle actually also served in that mission. So it was really cool that he was going to get to go there to the same place that we'd been hearing about our whole lives. Um, and this was before they could video call us every week. So he would email us, and I just remember thinking that he was just so cool, and that I also wanted to have that
Yeah,
experience as well.
and look, I can just imagine the family gathered around when he received his mission call to go to Chile. No, I've done it again. That's you. When he received his mission call, how excited were you to get your mission call to down to Chile, Conception South mission?
I was ecstatic. I wanted to serve South America. I wanted to serve Spanish speaking. I've always like I took Spanish in junior high, but I was not good. Um, and I couldn't say anything. But I remember having classmates who didn't speak English, and I really, really tried to help her. There was this one specifically. I really tried to help her because my teacher would just like look at her and talk really slowly as if that would help. And instead I would like go into Google Translate and tried to talk to her and became her friend. And so I've always just wanted to be able to help and speak Spanish, and I've already gotten to use it so much. At this elementary school I worked at, most of the kids that I worked with were second language. Their first language was Spanish. And so I got to come in and I translated for one of their parent-teacher conferences, because their parents don't speak English. And so I just always was like, I want Spanish speaking. I think it'd be so cool to be able to help people who seem so humble. And it was
Yeah,
a dream come true.
that's amazing. It's funny, when I received my mission call as a young man, I remember thinking, look, the only country in the world I really don't want to go to is New Zealand. I'd only ever met one person from New Zealand that I really liked, you know. I don't want to go to New Zealand. Guess where my mission call was, you know, New Zealand. But I love New Zealand now, and I love New Zealanders and everything. So, you know, your attitude can change over the years. But yeah, that was like, as you said, a dream come true for you to go down there. You were immersed in a different culture. How was that, getting used to living in this totally different culture? I mean, I have no idea what Conception is like. Is that a big city? Were you in a big city, in a country area? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Concepcion technically wasn't part of my mission. That's where the mission home was, and the temple was there, but the Concepcion mission covered that city. I mostly served countryside, like small towns. I a little bit served in the cities, but mainly I was in these small little places. So they usually had branches, and we would help a lot. They're big enough that we didn't need to like run Sunday school or anything, but we definitely were part of the program, and I spoke like every 2 months. Like I spoke a lot on my mission and was just always ready to help. So that was pretty cool. And I got to play the piano in sacrament meeting near the end of my mission, once we were in person again, because I didn't have a pianist. So I was
Yeah.
able
Oh,
to
that's
do that.
amazing. Yeah. Look, a lot of the young missionaries we have serving here, at one stage, we've got 2, 4, 6 young missionaries serving right nearby us here. And at one stage, almost every one of them played the piano, which was really good. That was a great resource. So, you know, having those sort of talents really helps on your mission, I think, anyway. So yeah, that's fantastic. As you were getting, you know, towards the end of your mission, and I'm thinking of myself a little bit here now. We've only got 3 months to go on our mission, and we're serving 18 months, same period of time that you served as a sister missionary. We were lucky we came out here on our mission just towards the end of COVID, so we had very few missionaries here, but things have built up, and you know, we started with just one other companionship in our whole area, and now we've got, I think, 5 companionships here, so things have really changed a lot. But we're sort of getting towards the end of our mission, and we're starting to think, oh, you know, what things do we need to be working on? We've only got 3 months to go. Did you have a sort of similar feeling as you were sort of getting close to the end of your mission? You're thinking, oh, what more can I do? Any sort of thoughts around that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely was like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? Like, how am I going to apply what I've learned? Um, and I kind of served a mission at the time. Another reason I went straight off is because I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, college-wise. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to study. And I was like, oh, I'll just put that off. I'll just go on a mission. Like, then I don't have to think about it. And then I'm, you know, nearing the end, I'm like, oh, crap, now I have to make a decision. Now I have to, like, you know, make more big life decisions, because like the mission, they're like, here's what you do, just do these things and you're great. Whereas afterwards it's a little more open, and I was kind of afraid of that. And they make you do my plan, where you have to like be thinking about the future and what you're going to be doing. And I think the main thing to me that I really thought about was just that I needed to keep up my spiritual growth. Not that I needed to study an hour a day necessarily, but that I needed to be reading the Book of Mormon every day. And one that stood out to me very strongly was to go to the temple once a week, especially because I'd only been through, I went through once before my mission, and then I was lucky enough to go 3 times on my mission. But I wanted to like really understand the endowment, and so I made the goal to go once a week. And I have missed maybe 2 weeks in the last year. And so I think just that, and then working on my Instagram page to like bear my testimony and to study more, that was kind of the main I don't know, thought that I got as I
Yeah.
was finishing the
Okay.
mission.
Yeah. Look, that's interesting. That's just a fantastic goal to have, to be able to go, set a goal to go to the temple once a week, and to be able to do that almost every week. I'm guessing you probably have a fairly short drive to the nearest temple, do you?
Yeah, so during the school year, it was a
Wow.
5-minute drive. So very close. And then right now it's a 25-minute drive, which is still
Yeah.
very close. So it's not, so in that way, it's not as big of a sacrifice because I do live close enough that that's a possibility
Yeah,
to go every week.
that's amazing. Which temple is your temple?
Right now it's the Ogden.
Okay, that's fantastic. You're so blessed, in many ways to live in Utah. Back home where
Yes.
we live down near Melbourne, and the temple is on the other side of Melbourne to us. Melbourne's a big city. It's nearly 5 million people, or around about 5 million people. So we have about an hour and 15-minute drive to get to the temple normally, and we try and go once a week. My wife and I were temple workers, so we go 1 week as workers and another week as patrons. So we try to go every week, and we actually did achieve that most of the time. But quite a battle through the peak hour traffic to get there usually. But now we're living in Cairns, which is in tropical North Queensland. We are about 1,500 kilometres, about 800 miles or so from the nearest temple. And we have been once for our mission so far. The dream of many of the members here in Cairns is to have a temple in Cairns. There are in the city of Cairns. There are 2 branches of the church, and they would get attending, maybe 80 to 100 people each Sunday. There are a couple of nearby branches that are, sort of around an hour to an hour and a half away. Those branches might get 30 or 40 people there on a really good Sunday. There's another branch of the church to the far north of us, bordering on Papua New Guinea. So there's a group of islands called the Torres Strait Islands, and so there's a branch up there as well. And that's almost somewhere in about another 1,500 kilometres to the north of us. So our area here is huge, and the nearest temple is down in Brisbane. So it's in the state of Queensland, which is a huge state. Texas will fit in Queensland almost 3 times, just to give you an idea of how big it is. But it's a long, long way to the temple. So, the members here dream of one day having a temple a lot closer than it is now. And it's very difficult for members. A yearly trip to the temple is often what people aim for. So it's very difficult. You're so blessed there in Utah just to be able to have a 5-minute drive, a 20-minute drive, or whatever to a temple. It's pretty amazing. As I said, I've been to Utah and I've driven around and seen how many temples there are there, and it is it's just an amazing place. Sarah, it's been great talking to you. Something I did want to ask you about was your mission. Something else about your mission. So, number of converts there. We've always had this impression in Australia, at least, that in South America, people are literally queuing up to be baptized, and it's probably not like that. Maybe it was like that once, but were there any converts on your mission that you met who had some sort of standout conversion story for you that you might like to relate to us? Or is there anyone particular you can think of that you think would be an interesting story to tell us?
As I thought about this, there was this family that I taught actually on the mission, and they actually got baptized a week after I left the area. And so I served. I tended to not move around, but my companions would change. So I would stay in an area for a while, and then my companion would leave. So I was in this particular area 2 transfers. So I guess not horribly long, but the sisters who had been serving in this area before us had been talking about this family they were teaching because they were in our district. And so we got to hear about this family. They were like, I don't know, like we should probably just stop teaching them because they're not listening. It was they're probably in their 30s, and then they had a little girl who was 4, and they lived in this tiny little house, like a kitchen, a bed, like a room that had a bed in it, and then the bathroom, and that was it. And it was not very clean, and you had to go through a house into this like alleyway pretty much, and then it's just like 10 houses all in a row, and it was always super loud. There was always loud music playing that was not the best music, and not the best place to be raising a child. And so you'd go there and you would be trying to teach them, and this little girl would be like pulling on your hair. Like we started putting our hair up every time we went, and she would jump on you, and then like the husband would kind of just leave and not really listen to us, or he didn't quite Bible bash, but he definitely was like, well, I don't know about that. But the wife wanted to learn about the Bible, but she couldn't read very well, so we were trying to, she's from Peru, and so we were trying to like teach them. And so with my first companion, like the last week that she ended up being there, we were talking like, I think we're just going to have to stop teaching them because they're not really listening and they're not keeping their commitments. Like we would be like, okay, read a verse of the scriptures, and she wouldn't. Or we'd be like, okay, pray as a family, and they wouldn't do it. So like, I don't know. And so then my new companion came, and she was very gung-ho, and she was like, no, let's go teach them. So we went, we taught them, and our strategy this time was have one of us distract the kid while the other one taught, and we would trade off, but little less trade off than normal, because we were going to distract the kid at all costs. And so we would stay we wouldn't like pick them up or anything, following missionary standards, but we would always be watching her, and we would play with her, show her. She always liked the little like colorful tabs on my scriptures, so I'd let her play with my scriptures. And we decided to just start off with like very simple, like God loves you. And instead of trying to make the lesson quick, or because they wanted us to stay, that was the thing, is they wanted us to come. And so we would come, and we ended up spending probably like 2 hours there, and we got through God is our loving Heavenly Father. And at first the husband wouldn't really listen, but we like kept going, and we kept giving the commitments, and we just kept praying for them. We ended up getting a member to host them so that they wouldn't be in this little house that was really hard to feel the spirit. And she was the Relief Society president, and her husband was the stake patriarch. So they came and picked them up, brought them to their house, and we taught them the plan of salvation. And it was the most powerful lesson that I have like ever taught. And I was pretty quiet. My companion likes to talk. I didn't. I would usually let her go a lot more than I would talk. And I just remember that the wife was like, yes, I want to be baptized, because we'd mentioned baptism before. They'd been teaching, and she's like, I want to be baptized. And her husband just goes on her about how like she's not ready, she's not good enough of a person. And we have to know that he was dealing with we believe it was bipolar, but we don't know. And so he would have bad days where he would just be really angry, and he would kind of berate her. And I remember I like looked at him, and I was like, well, do you want to be baptized? And she was like, no, I'm going to do it. Like, I don't care what you say. Like, I'm going to. She'd come to church by herself. She had walked her stroller the 15-20 minute walk without her husband, because he refused to come with her. And I was like, well, do you want to be changed by God? And like very direct, like I looked him in the eyes and was like, do you want that? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, do you want to be baptized? He said, well, yeah, and I was like, no buts. Like, do you have this desire? And he said, yeah. and I said, will you prepare to be baptized on such and such date? I think it was like a month out. Like, will you prepare and do everything you can to be baptized on this day? And at this point, he is like sobbing. I have never seen, like, I'd either seen him angry or like just kind of nothing. And he was like, the spirit was so strong, and he's sobbing. He's like, yes, I will do it. And he came to church that Sunday. He walked there. He brought his wife, and they went. And then they came the next week, and they were coming to activities that they had in the church, and we were meeting with them on Sundays, and they started to keep their commitments that we had given them. And then they were preparing for the baptismal date, and then they weren't perfect. Like, he ended up missing a week, and she went. And so there was a point where she was prepared to be baptized and he wasn't. And they went, and I, at this point, had moved. I had ended up going and whitewashing another area, and I was training. And so my companion with her trainee, 4 days after I left, the wife had her baptism, and then 3 weeks later, he got baptized. And they kept coming to church and getting to know the members and becoming friends with them. And I just seeing how the gospel changed their perspective on life, and how he realized, because he was also really struggling with his business that he was trying to run, and just seeing how they're relying on the Savior just changed their perspective and made them realize that, like, life was worth living.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story, Sarah. A lot of lessons to learn from there, for missionaries watching this. And I think one of the lessons I'm thinking of is that never write someone off as being not worth continuing with. I mean, I guess you do get to the point where you have to sometimes, but you could have written that family off early on and not persevered. I think perseverance is one of the great qualities a missionary can have. Perseverance, patience, realizing that people can change. It doesn't happen overnight. It's sort of more of a gradual process. Getting the members involved there, that was probably one of the key things, wasn't it? Getting the members involved and really good members, really society president and the state patriarch. I mean, you probably couldn't find two better members to get involved there. Have you in any way managed to sort of maintain any contact with that family? Do you know how they're doing now? Any word from them?
Unfortunately, I thought that I had noted a list of WhatsApp contacts because they didn't have Facebook. But I have lost my list. So I've actually, in thinking of them as I was preparing for this podcast, I was thinking I need to find their number. And I think I have a member friend from the area that would probably have it. So I'm actually gonna follow up and see if I can get his phone number.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I bet they would be thrilled to hear from you. Yeah, that's such a good thing. I don't know if you noticed recently, I interviewed the two missionaries who found me 42 years ago. We haven't always kept in touch that well, but it was just, it was great to be able to catch up with them together. One of them I met once. He and his companion knocked on my door, and he was right at the end of his mission. He went home within 2 weeks of knocking on my door. I've never ever seen him again. But a few years ago, he reached out and got in touch with me via the missionary who was with him when he knocked on the door, and that missionary went on to teach me and baptize me. And I've visited he and his family in Arizona a couple of times. We're lifelong friends. I know his kids, all that sort of thing. It's just, it's a great relationship. And, one of the other missionaries who taught me was from Preston in Idaho. Keeping in touch with people like that is a really, really good thing to do. And obviously it's, difficult sometimes when you lose numbers and all that sort of stuff. And, you're
half a world away, it seems. But yeah, it does make a difference, I think, being able to do that. So, and that's highly encouraged by by our church leaders. That we're encouraged to keep in touch as much as we can with the people that we teach. And I know serving here in Cairns, probably some of our best friends here are not members of the church. There are people that we spent time with, haven't necessarily actually taught anything, but we've just been friends with them and done things for them to help them and, introduce the gospel to them in some way. And they'll be lifelong friends for sure. They're people that we'll keep in touch with too. So, Sarah, just before we wind up, some of the aspects of your life and your spiritual life are very evident on your Instagram page, and you obviously have a very strong testimony of the gospel. Tell us, is there a sort of a favourite aspect of the gospel that you can share with us, and then be your testimony?
Yeah, of course. I think for me, my favorite aspect is simply just Jesus Christ's atonement, that he atoned for our sins, that he suffered everything that we've gone through. I remember times on my mission or in my life that I felt very low. There was even a time in junior high that the only thing that got me through was seminary, and like reading in the New Testament about Jesus's life, and just knowing that he understands completely, even when other people don't. And that includes mental, physical, emotional, spiritual difficulties. And that because of him, we are able to live as families forever. And I think just as a missionary, I remember that I always said that I was here because I wanted to share the good news of the gospel. And the good news is that we can live again with our families, and that is through the atonement of Jesus Christ. And I just know that as we continue to, keep the commandments of God and understand that they're here for our benefit, and that we can turn to our loving Heavenly Father, who is our Father, not this almighty being. He's an almighty being, but he's also a loving Father, that we can go through anything, and that we can be perfected and return to live in the celestial kingdom.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time today, Sarah. I know it's a Sunday evening there in the US, in Utah. It's Monday morning for me here. It's just been great spending this time with you and getting to know you a little bit better, and letting everyone else get to know you a little bit better. For those who have not seen my page before on Instagram, what we do is we save these interviews. I'll later upload it as a YouTube video, as a Facebook video, and also as a podcast. And, my hope is that, people learn from the conversion stories of others, and whether you've grown up in the church like you have, Sarah, or whether you're a more mature convert like I was, or whatever. We all have conversion stories. At some stage through our life we've been converted, and the story that you shared of that family down in your mission who you taught, that's just a wonderful story to have, and there are lessons to learn from that for all of us as members of the church and as missionaries. The missionaries need the help of the members, and the people we're teaching need the help of the members too. And there's only so much we can do as missionaries because we're here temporarily, and the members are there permanently, and it just makes such a difference when members can be involved with the missionaries and the people they're teaching. It's fantastic. So thanks again for your time, Sarah. I just encourage anyone who's not following you on Instagram to look up Let's Be Growing, and you'll get not a daily dose of inspiration from Sarah. What's your aim there, Sarah? Is it once a week now, or it's?
Yeah. My goal is 2 to 3 times a week, but
Yeah.
depends on
So
the
it's
week.
just a great page to follow. Thanks again, Sarah, and we'll keep in touch. Eh? No worries.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having me.
you.
It
Bye for
was
now.
an honor.
Bye.
See ya.
If you have an interesting story to tell, please contact us via our Instagram page or send an email to gatherin@proton.me.